Hi, welcome to this orientation briefing. So in this orientation briefing videos, I'll be sharing with you some of the important topics that you'll need to know about the company. But before us moving forward to those companies that we'll be covering today, I would like to share with you the purpose or the reason why are you watching this today. So it's because during this orientation, I believe that there's a lot of basic informations that we'll like to make you understand. So I believe that after watching all of the videos and covering all the session today, at the end of the day, what are you going to achieve? This will allow you to understand what does the company do first, what kind of services do we provide, and how do we provide this service. So we hope that after going through some of the topics of some of the session, these are the basic information that you should know. But in case after covering some of the session, there are still questions, so there are still doubts that make you wonder like how does the company operates. So please ask around or ask your superior in charge about those questions that you have in mind. Okay. Okay, moving forward, let's talk a little bit about the terms and definition. So, like what I've mentioning many times just now, before we talk a little bit more about the services that we offer, let's take a moment to familiarize, to learn a little bit about the terms which will be appearing later, which will be encountered frequently, not just in this presentation. So I believe that while you're working, you will hear your colleagues often mention about these few terms. So what are they? So we are going to learn what does standard mean? What does management and certificate means? Okay. Okay, let's take an example about a standard. We are going to take this example to explain to you what it means. So imagine you are making a cake. For you to make a cake, you need a recipe. The recipe that you follow to make the cake is what we call as a standard. So by having a standard, it actually tells you the right things to do. So for you to make a cake, you need to know the right ingredients you need to know the right ingredients. You need to know the right measurement. You need to know the right steps to make a yummy cake. So by having a standard, that is your recipe. Okay. So standard actually help to make sure that things are done correctly. So if let's say you think that you need a little bit time to digest, please pause this videos and to read this statement again. Okay. Now, moving on, what does management system means? So by having, for you to make a cake, by having a recipe is not enough. You need a plan. So by having a management system, it means having a proper plan to follow, to make sure that the cake, how the cake is made. Okay, so the plan is like a management system. Now, a management system is a smart way. If let's say we were to apply this to a company, a management system, it's a smart way where a company, how they plans and organizes everything they do. Okay, so by having a proper plan, it helps them to work well and keep improving. Okay, now what does certificate means? So when someone follows the recipe, okay, and the plan successfully, they get a certificate. So this certificate is actually a proof to tell everybody else out there and say that, hey, this company actually really follow the standard. So after checking that they really follow the standard, I give them this certificate to prove that they are really complying what the standard asks them to do. Okay. So for us to give you a little bit of a linkage, for us to link what is the relationship between a standard, because just now, even after the explanation, some of them will still feel very confused. Standard and management system sound so familiar. I mean, sounds so similar. So what's the difference between them? So this is actually the linkage. In a similar way, for you to apply this, just now we are taking, making cake as an example. But for us to apply this in the business world, it means companies that have their own recipe, standards for doing things correctly, okay, they organize their work to meet those standards. And when they do it well, they get a certificate to prove that they are doing the things the right way. Okay, in case the explanation still sounds a bit vague and you still can't really see what's the linkage between these three, I'm going to take a standard to give you an example. I think this standard is actually quite a common one. Even before this, if let's say you are not in this industry, I bet that you have heard about halal certificate before. So if let's say you know what a halal standard is, basically it's those, usually it's the F&B. We will say that it's the F&B businesses or the F&B factories who actually process or manufacture foods who wants to comply to halal standard. So now, like what I said just now, for them to really wants to convince the public, saying that when they do the operation, when they do the manufacturing, it's really complying to the halal way. So how to make sure that they know what to follow in order to do it the halal way? They need the standard. So imagine the standard, it's basically like a set of a document. Inside, it has all the syarat and requirements inside. Okay, so first what they do is that they need to take the standard and follow whatever which is being mentioned over inside. So that is actually called as the halal standard. So the next step, it will be them, like what we said just now, by having the recipe is not enough. They need to have the plan. They need to have a proper plan to make sure that they are following the halal standard. For example, they need to make sure that they have the documentation. Like when they do the manufacturing, what are the SOP? Like for example, if let's say it's a manufacturing of a food companies, they want to follow the halal standard, what about the raw materials? So when they source the raw materials, they need to have the SOPs and things like that. So by having the set of a SOP, it's the plan. Okay, so when you have the plan, you follow the halal standard, it means you have a management system. So by getting the halal standard, by having the management system, they follow. Because for them to convince the public to say that they are now, okay, I am now operating the business using the halal way, they cannot just convince using verbally. Okay, they need to show them approved. How do they prove it to the public? Is that the JAKIM auditor, this is where we said that the certification body, okay, need to come to the companies and do a checking. They need to audit them and making sure that they are really complying to the standard. So this is now the linkage. Like you see, they have a halal standard, they follow, okay? And then after following, they have the third party. They can't be auditing themselves. They need to have a third party to be independent to come and check whether do they follow the standard. After checking and making sure that yes, they do follow, they give them a certificate as a proof. So this is an example. Okay, so just now after going through what a standard is, so now I'm going to talk a little bit more about standard, because just now what we explained in the terms and definition is just the definition. It's just the basic that definition of a standard. So a standard actually has a lot more for us to talk about it, because why? This session is very important. Let me help you to recall is that what our service, what kind of service does SQC Penang provide is that we provide consultations. Our main activity is that we provide consultation to our clients, make sure our clients pass the audit and get the cert. How do they need to pass the audit? They need to follow the standard, and then the auditor need to check them to make sure that they really follow the standard, then give them the certificate. So to make sure that they follow the standard, it's what our job is, okay? So then, in this case, then there's actually many types of standards that we help our clients to follow. It's not just standard. Is not just one book and then all clients from all industry follow that same standard. There's a lot. There's many types of standards. Okay, so just now in the previous session, what we use as an example is that we use halal standard. Halal is not an ISO. Okay, so one type of standard is actually called as the ISO standard. So what is ISO means? Now, I would say that if let's say any one of you before entering this industry, I am not sure whether have you heard what an ISO is, or do you actually previously seen ISO? Have you seen ISO somewhere else? Most probably, if let's say you did, it could be somewhere else. Usually, it's at the factory or at the industry area. Okay, kawasan perindustrian. So what is the linkage between a factory? Like why usually a factory areas there will be like words like ISO something something being printed at their factories, or outside their factory building. Like why? Now let's look here. ISO standard, basically ISO, there's many types of ISO. Okay, like what I said just now, ISO is not just like a set of ISO. There could be environmental related ISO, workplace related ISO. That one it's for different scope. If let's say it's a ISO for environmental, the ISO is actually telling the companies how to operate the business to take care in terms of the environmental impact. Okay, if let's say the ISO is about workplace safety ISO, when the company follow the workplace safety standard, basically they are actually practicing workplace safety, because some of the work practices, it might be very risky when it comes to the employment safety. Okay, so by looking back, so who actually drafted this standard? Okay, so it's a body. The body is actually called as, this is the full name, International Organization for Standardization. So this body actually, they draft these standards to tell those companies that what they should follow. Okay, so here what we say is that our firm, that means SQC, specializes in what? Specializes in diverse. Diverse mean various, different kinds of ISO, which I'll be sharing with you, because just now I mentioned, right, there's actually a lot of different ISO that we help people to comply to. So I'll be sharing with you some of the common type. So because ISO, there's actually too many, but in the market, there's actually few of them which we will always see people wants to get it. First, it usually, we call it as the common one. The common ISO is actually ISO 9001. Okay, so in this session, I will also want to help you to understand a little bit about this thing over here, because sometimes you see ISO 9001, sometimes you see this QMS, sometimes you see quality management system, and sometimes you see a longer version with the year, okay, followed by the ISO 9001 2015. What does it mean? This is the ISO code. This is the name of the management system. Okay, can you still remember what does the management system means? And then what is the relationship between the standard and the management system? If let's say you are still confused, please, go and ask around, or you can pause this video, look back the previous session and to make clear about it. Now, let's continue. ISO, so like what I've mentioned, it has many ways of us calling a standard. So ISO 9001, it's the numeric name, is the code, okay? But what does 2015 means? Okay, 2015 is actually the year the standard is being published. Okay, before 2015, it was actually the old version, which we call it as ISO. Before 2015 version, okay, it is ISO 9001 2008. Okay, before 2008, when was it? It was 9001 2000. Okay, what it means here? This 2000. Okay, it's very hard to highlight, but anyway, this one, and this one. Okay, before ISO 2001, it has like older version. So ISO is actually a standard, right, for people to follow, for a company to follow. Imagine one company, if the standard that they follow, it has no changes after 20 years. People is still following the same way that the company is still using like 20 years back. No, it can't, because in a business world, improvement is needed. Okay, so you can't be following a very old version. So the ISO body, for every few year times, they will sit down and then they will discuss. So they will discuss, is there any upgrading? Is there any changes needed for the standard? So for a few years time, there might comes with a new changes. So the last changes, it was in 2015. So okay, this one all no more. Okay. Okay. So what it means here is that in year 2015, the ISO body, they publish a new standard. They take the 2008 version and then they go and update inside, update the new changes, and then they publish in 2015. So from 2015 onwards, there is a new standard. So now the ISO 9, imagine this is an ISO 9 standard, right? Okay. It is the 2015 version. Is this going to be updated again? We do not know. Okay, but the latest standard now, the latest version now is the 2015 version. Okay, so what does this mean? What does this mean instead? So this is actually the name of the ISO. And then here, sometimes by reading the title, you can somehow guess what this standard actually helps the company. So this one, it actually helps the company in terms of kejaminan quality, to make sure that whatever product that they produce or the service the company offer, or how the company actually operates, it's based on quality. Quality means what? Quality, it means customer satisfaction, decrease customer dissatisfaction and customer complaint. Okay, so because we have a lot of standards that we need to go through, so I will not be explaining to you in details, but I'll just be telling you briefly what is this standard about, what is the benefits, and usually who will be following this standard. Okay. So the benefits of ISO 9 is to improve the product and service quality, increase the customer satisfaction, increase efficiency, and better management of process. In Malay, we are going to use a very layman terms. It means the company is not kelam kabut. Okay, everything is very systematic. They have very proper SOP. Okay, everything is being documented. So this is how the ISO 9 is going to help the clients lah. Okay, but how is it going to help? Like, what do we do? What SQC actually do to help people to follow this, to achieve this? I'll be telling you later. Okay. So what type of companies actually needs this ISO 9? Here, we would say that why we said ISO 9 is the basic and the common ISO standard, because various industry, it means the almost every industry, today be you are a manufacturer, today you don't manufacture product, you provide service, you can also get ISO 9, okay? So if let's say anyone who is seeking to demonstrate, to wants to commit, to wants to make sure that they have quality product and service, and to increase the customer satisfaction, they can follow this standard. Okay. Now, the next common standard, they don't come in how to say, in order sequence, in order sequence mean, oh, this one is the most common one, this is the second common one. No, they are all equally common. Okay. So ISO 14001, same goes. What is the latest version? The latest version is 2015. So what is ISO 14001? It is Environmental Management System. Now look at the name. So can you connect? Can you link, like what is it about? It's about environmental. It's about environment. So you can go through the definition on your own. If let's say for any time you want to stop this video, please press the pause button. Okay. So how can a 14001, when a company comes to SQC Penang and say that, hey, we need ISO 14001, our consultant go to their company and make sure that they follow the ISO 14001 standard, right? And after following the ISO 14001 standard, what kind of benefit the company will receive? First, they will see the reduce of environmental footprint. they will comply more in terms of the environmental regulation. Okay, so for you, if let's say you're not so familiar in terms of industrial, and you're not so familiar in terms of industrial, right? Usually in not just in Malaysia, in every country, anywhere, in case it's industrial, you are in the industry, especially that when you are processing or when you are manufacturing a product, there is a lot of regulation you need to follow. There's a lot of syarat you need to follow. When you don't follow syarat, what will happen? You will receive penalty. There's not just penalty, there will be even like more serious consequences that you need to bear. One of it is actually the environmental regulation. Usually it comes from who? It comes from the Department of Environment, okay, DOE. So by following the standard in ISO 14001, it also ensure you are following what the DOE is asking you to follow. Those, okay, ISO, I want to make you understand is that ISO is not rules, it's not law. If let's say now you're a factory, you don't have ISO, is it okay? Yes, you're okay. You're not going to receive any penalty saying that you don't have ISO. It's fine. But when it comes to regulation that is being imposed by the government, you need to follow. If let's say it's a regulation from the authority usually it's the government, you don't follow, this is where that consequences will come to you. You know, those legal consequences, penalty. So if let's say when you comply to ISO 14001, at the same time, it makes sure that you don't miss any regulation that the government wants you to follow. Like you will also at the same time follow at the same time. Okay, so it helps you to enhance reputations. You know, people say that, wow, this company, you know, it has 14001. Usually, if let's say our clients got it, their clients will it will impact how the clients see them lah. I mean the client of our client. Okay, so usually is the businesses who is looking to minimize the environmental impact and show dedication to the environmental practices. Most of the time they are the manufacturers. Okay, 14001 is about work safety. Okay, so usually we will say that most of the time it will be the construction company, it is the manufacturer also, because imagine when you are manufacturing a certain thing, it involves a lot of machineries, okay, heavy machinery. So machinery, it's going to cause harm to the employee. Okay, it's very risky. So for a company that come to SQC Penang, and our consultant go there, help them to follow the ISO 45001 standard. Okay, what can it actually help them to achieve is that reduce workplace accident, okay, increase employee well-being, legal compliance, same goals. This one is compliance environmental regulation, right? This is the compliance of the DOSH. In Malaysia, that's a department, we call it as who take care about the workplace safety. Okay, so they do impose regulation that they want the factory, they want the company to follow. Like for example, if let's say the machine has creates a lot of like noise, pollution, it's going to impact the employees. So one of the regulation, it might be the employees. So for a certain time, they need to go and do the noise test and all. So when you follow ISO 14001, at the same time, it's also comply to the regulation that the authority wants you to follow. Okay, and then it improve productivity. Okay, so usually who will comply. Comply means follow. Who will comply this ISO? It's the company who prioritize their work, their employee health and safety, and then to prevent workplace injuries and illnesses. Usually, we will also say that usually it's the manufacturers as well lah. Okay. 22,000, it talks about food safety. So this one, it's always about the food industry, not just the food manufacturers. It could be a company who do something related to food. Like for example, they might not be producing the food product. Okay, they might be producing this container. This container it contacts with the food inside, right? So the manufacturers of these food containers, they can also apply ISO 22000. And there's actually a lot more of them, like here, which I'll bring you through later. So the benefits of the company who come to us, who said that they want to comply ISO 22000, what can they achieve? Enhance food safety. They make sure that when they do the operation, it follows the food safety regulation. Okay, improve customer trust. I believe today, if let's say we are all consumers, right? We buy food product, two products. One has a certified that they have food safety certificate, and one without. Which one you'll buy? Of course, the one that actually jamin you about the keselamatan makanan, right? Okay, minimize the foodborne hazard. Okay, who will actually need this ISO 22000? Businesses who involve in food production, food processing, packaging, and if let's say you are also distributing food, you can also follow this. 13485, okay, 13485, it's very similar to ISO 22000. See here, it also has quality management system because they also talk about quality. But this one, it focus, who usually will need this, it's the one who manufacture medical device. If let's say today, you're a medical device company, right? You not just follow ISO 9001, because why? ISO 9001 to you is not enough anymore. It's insufficient. It's too shallow. Okay, you need something more. Because why? As a medical device manufacturers, the main point is medical device. You are actually producing something else which might be impacting somebody else's life. If let's say the products or the service that you provide, you are not taking care about the quality, something goes wrong, what it will affect? It will affect somebody else's life. It's a matter of death or life, right? So when it comes to medical device manufacturer, they have another set of standard which really focuses in terms of the quality when you are dealing with the medical device. Okay, so you can actually go through the benefits over here. Okay, then I want to talk a little bit about improved market access. So what does improved market access is that just now, still remember I mentioned this standard, in case you are not in case you don't have this standard, it's fine. You are not going to the authority, the government is not going to impose any penalty to you, But if let's say you are a medical device manufacturer, this is a time that the authority tells you that it is mandatory. You must get ISO 13485 for you to manufacture a medical device. So what does it has to do with market access? Market access, it means after you produce, right? You produce, this medical device need to be sold in the marketplace. So for the patient to use it, for it to be sold in the marketplace, that means being sold lah, okay? For it to access the market. So for it to be accessed, to be sold to the patient, you need to have 13485. Okay, if not, you cannot. You don't have the right to manufacture a medical device. You are at fault. So type of the company is the manufacturers, the suppliers of the medical device. But let me remove the suppliers over here, because suppliers has another standard to follow, which is not under ISO that I'll be briefing you later. 17025, it talks about laboratory. Okay, so what does laboratory means is that laboratory, what do they need to do? Laboratory need to test something else, right? So imagine they are testing something else. Imagine their equipments, their testing system all is inaccurate. So the testing result definitely is going to be inaccurate as well. So for a laboratory, how to make sure that those testing system, their equipments all are very accurate? What they need to do? They come to SQC, and then they ask our consultant to go there to help them to comply to this standard. Because why? By complying to these standards, it will increase the confidence in terms of the calibration result. same things, you compare two laboratory, one has ISO 27025, one don't have ISO 17025. Who has the more accurate test result? Definitely is the one who follow this standard lah, right? So it improves the laboratory efficiency. Okay, it has more reliable data. Now, type of company, it is a lab, who do testing and calibrations. Okay, so these are all, let us recall again. These are all about ISO. So we always say that standard, always remember, it's not just ISO is the only body who drafts standard. Like for example, halal. Halal is another type of body, is another type of is another type of standard. So what we actually cover in this part is very lengthy, right? It's all about ISO, but under ISO body, do they actually draft more ISO standard than this? There's actually even more. Okay, so the one which I bring you through is just the common one when you work in this company that you encountered with. Okay, now let's move forward. Those other than ISO, so what other common standard do we also help the clients to comply? Okay, so here is the explanation. In addition to the ISO standard, which I explained to you just now, there's actually even more. There's actually wider range of wider range of other standard that clients can follow to meet a specific industry requirements and demonstrate their commitment to various aspects in terms of quality, in terms of safety, sustainability. Sustainability means environmental, okay? It could be environmental, ethical. Sometimes we talk about human right. Human right also have standard, okay, which we will be telling you later. So what we do is that we specialize in helping the clients to achieve these certifications, okay? So what are those other common type of standards over here? So here, of course, we just, I don't place all the definitions and the benefits. You can do a little bit of research on your own, so it don't appears to be too long, okay? So other type of standard, it could be halal. Halal is another type, it's not under ISO. Halal, there's a lot of scheme, okay? Halal can be applied in food. We call it as halal for food. So if let's say ladies, usually Muslim ladies, I'm not sure whether are you aware, when you use cosmetic, some of the cosmetic products, they also comply to the halal standard, especially like for example, your brushes. We need to make sure that the brushes, it's not used those kind of haram punya bulu, right? So that's another type of standard for cosmetic. So logistic also has, if let's say your logistic company, when you do logistic, you need to make sure that the goods that you carry around is not being mixed with the haram goods, right? Logistic also has its own halal standard. Okay. Now that we have already finished covering about halal certificate, right? So let's talk about HACCP. But this is a special case because I'm not going to talk about just only HACCP to you and then GMP, then only move on to MERSI. I will be explaining to you these three standards at one go. Because why? Because these three actually talks about food safety as well. So if let's say food safety sounds a little bit familiar to you, it's because still remember just now when I was covering about the ISO standards, I did talk about food safety as well. But if let's say we can recall, maybe it can take some time to recall what kind of ISO is that. It was actually ISO 22000, okay? But other than ISO 22000 that actually helps people to take care about the food safety, about the keselamatan makanan, there's actually other standards that talks about food safety as well. So now, I'm not sure whether will you have this kind of question as in like, if let's say there's actually not just only one standard, 4 standard, now we can see that there's actually more than one that talks about keselamatan makanan. So which one do our clients need to follow? Is it they need to take all together, take 4 certificate together, or they only need to choose the one that is suitable to them? Okay, for me to answer this, let me show you with a diagram. Let me explain it with a diagram here. Okay, so here this is actually the ISO 22000 that I explained to you just now. Okay, so here we also have halal, mesti, GMP, HACCP, and let's not talk about this first. Okay, now why it's halal appearing here is because, still remember just now when I talk about halal, halal actually have different scope. It has standard for logistic, it has standard for cosmetic, but the most common halal will always be the halal for food standard. So this is also considered as under food certificate. So halal actually talks a little bit about food safety also, other than just telling our clients, the halal way of operation. Not just the halal way, halal also emphasize about food safety. Okay, and mesti. But the reason why we put it in this pyramid diagram is because of the level. If let's say you are aware, the level actually has hierarchy where it moves up. Okay, so in this recording, I am not going to tell you in very details what are they, what are the differences between them, because it might be a little bit hard for you to digest if let's say you are not from the food background. Okay, but I just want to share with you what are the differences between them in terms of the level. Okay, so still remember just now I mentioned about this thing, like they move up, The reason why is because if let's say you can see the one which is at the bottom part, halal and mesti, then GMP, then HACCP, then ISO, is because the way it moves up, the higher it gets, the stricter the requirements are. Okay, stricter, that means they all talk about keselamatan makanan, but GMP, when it talks about the hygiene, when it talks about the food safety, it is stricter than mesti. But when it comes to HACCP, they also take care about food safety, but it is stricter than GMP and mesti. When it comes to ISO 22000, it is even stricter than those below. And is there other standard which is even stricter than ISO 22000? There are, which is, those FSSC you see over here. Now, that's the reason why I was telling you that when I want to do an explanation to tell you what are they, so I want to explain it at one go, is because this all falls under food safety standard, but they do have a little bit of not a little bit, they do have a lot of differences between each other. But the most obvious concept I want you to understand is about the level of the requirements. It has the one which is with a lower standard. Lower standard, it means if let's say it's a company, we call it SME. It's a small company. It's just the founder of the company just founded the food business. It is very new. They don't have a lot of people who is actually taking care about the business. They can't be getting something like ISO 22000 and HACCP. The standard inside, the requirement inside is too much for them to follow. So what they do, they might be going for something else like mesti and halal. Very basic. It's more than enough for them to follow. Okay. Now, let's move on. Other than food, what we have over here, we have GDPMD. So still remember just now under ISO under ISO, that's 13485. But when it's those other than ISO standard, they are also standard, but it's not under the standard which is drafted by the ISO body. We also have, it's called as GDPMD, but this one manufacturers cannot get. This is only for the supplier, the people who distribute. They get the medical device from the manufacturers and they want to sell it. So this is whom we call it as distributor. So GDPMD is for the distributor. Now, moving on, we have heard about food, we have heard about laboratory, we have heard about medical device. So what about agriculture? In terms of agriculture, we also have standards as well. It's called FSC, PFC, MSPO, RSPO. This one, it talks about forestry management. When it comes to forest, we need to have a management system as well for the forest. This one talks about palm oil. Okay, so when it comes to palm oil, we need to have a certain standard to make sure that when it comes to when it comes to palm oil, there's actually few aspects. This standard it covers the environmental. When they are planting, when they have a palm oil plantation, they wants to make sure the plantations, the way the harvesting, the ways they plant the palm oil is not harming the environment. Okay, if let's say they do not take care, it is going to pollute the environment. They talks about human right, for people. If let's say they were to hire foreigners, they were to hire people who works in the palm oil plantations, how do they take care about their human rights? So it is actually a very wide standard that takes care a lot of the areas, right? So other than this, nowadays, I think you will, especially now, in this era, you will heard a lot of we call it as a sustainability standards. So last time it was all about ISO, but now when it comes to this era, people started to talks about environmental. They talks about you need to be good to the mother earth, things like that. They talks about human rights. So this all falls under the ESG. Okay, when you heard about ESG, it's actually a standards as well, but that standard, it is very different. Like food safety is just take care about food safety, laboratory is just take care about laboratory. So ESG is a little bit like the palm oil, which I've mentioned to you just now. It takes care about three aspects. In terms of the environmental, if let's say you are doing a business, if let's say you are operating a business, for you to comply to these standards, it helps you to make sure that you do good environmental practices. They make sure that your practices is not harmful to the environment. Okay, not only environment, they have to comply to the social side also. Social side is like what I said just now, it's about human right. Are you mistreating your workers? You cannot. Okay, so what about the gender equality? You cannot have sexual harassment in the workplace. Governance, they take care about some other things like anti-bribery. You cannot have like bribery case in your company. So this is what I think the society is talking about now. ITF 16949, it talks about automotive. Okay. All right, so let me wrap up this session again. I believe that this is the longest session out of all the orientation briefing. It's me explaining to you what are those common types of the standards that the clients usually come to us, asking for our help to help them to comply. Now, so let us recall again, of all the standards, what kind of standards do we have? We have the standards which is drafted by the ISO body. We call it as the ISO standard. So when people ask you, ISO standard, is it that there's only one ISO standard? No, there's actually many that focus in different scope. There's 9001, there's 14,000, there's 45,000 that talks about workplace safety. It's all under the ISO. But other than ISO body, is there other standards as well? There are, so like these are actually all the example standards, and who actually drafted them, that's another story. It's another lengthy explanation again, but all in all, they are not being drafted by the ISO. They are being drafted by some of the scheme owner. This is actually drafted by somebody else. This is drafted by another body. This is drafted by fun fact, this is being drafted by our Malaysia MOH. Okay, so they are not being drafted by the ISO body, hence they are not called as the ISO standard. Okay, now moving forward, for me to help you recall back when I was doing the company overview explanation to you, trying to explain to you who we are and what we do. Now, I hope that now you can digest a little bit better when I mention about what our company does, because just now I was telling that, oh, our companies, assist our clients in different industry by doing what? By helping them to improve their process, by making sure that they meet the international standards. So I hope that now you can, after with all the explanation earlier, so now you can understand a little bit more by how, like, what do we do actually, to help them to improve their process, to make sure they meet the standards. That is what we do, we help them to meet the standards, to meet the international standards. By meeting this standard, it actually helps them to improve their company process. But another question that leads you to think of this question, improving of their process and meet international standards, like how and what do we do? What's so great about the SQC services? Like what's so great what that we do in order for us to make a big impact in their company, improve their process, help them to meet the standards. So in this session, what am I going to share with you is by achieving this, for us to help them to achieve this is by providing the services below. Okay, so this session, I'm going to talk about the services that we provide. Okay, so the services that we provide, there's actually three. One, the main activity is we provide consultation service. Like, just now, if let's say you can recall, I've been telling you that, oh, the consultant do this, the consultant help them to comply standard. So the consultant help them to comply standard. This is called as consultation. Okay, we also provide training service, we sell training as well. So there's actually other service as well, which I will not be covering today, because this is actually quite rare, but this usually happens, this happens a lot. So when it comes to the services provide, this also means that, note that this is actually our core service. So now when your friends and your family ask you that, hey, what does your company do? Okay, now you know. So this is how you answer them, right? Okay, consultation. For the consultation service, I am going to, I think with me explaining in this session, right, this will lead you to hear by making you understand that, oh, okay, this is how we do the consulting in order for them to achieve this. Okay, so let me bring you to this session by telling you how do we do the consulting. Okay, okay, let's not focus here first. So a simple, to give you a simple context of how SQC management works, it will usually start with the salesperson. Okay, imagine a potential client, like a client A. Still, it's not our client yet, but it's our potential clients. They come to us, knock on our door and tell us that, hey, I might need certificate. Okay, so who will actually entertain them? It's the salesperson, right? So the salesperson will go and see them, do the sales process, they understand their needs, and then the sales process they move to the extent that the client said that, okay, I want you, after comparing with other competitors, we think that we want to let SQC Penang to help us to get the certificate. Okay, so the salesperson will then pass this to the admin. Of course, we do have a flow, which I am not going to explain about the details flow. Okay, I'm going to let your direct superior do it. Okay, but all in all is that the salesperson will get in, then pass through the admin who do the arrangement, and then it will drops on the consultant's hand. Okay, so this is when the consultant will take over the case, where they will start to see the clients and help them to comply to the standards. But how do they do it? Okay, so this is actually the approach. We make it into 4 stages. All right, the first stage is usually we call it as the commencement of the project. What does commencement means? Commencement means the starting of the project. Okay, so stage 1 is the kickstart of the project lah. So during stage 1, during the commencement of the project, it will usually start with an introduction training. We'll skip this part first. Let's talk about introduction training. So, but let me make a disclaimer before I move on with the explanation, is that this, see that I put EG over here, is actually the example, because I do not want to restrict your thought that thinking that, oh, these are the only activities we do during the consulting. No, because this is just the example, the basic activities we do, because some of the ISO standard, it requires more training. So other than introduction training, they requires training here. They will require other trainings here. You know, so this one is just the example of the basic activities that we do during the consultancy approach. But these are not just the only activities we do lah. All right. But okay, now let's go back in stage one. Usually when we want to start with a project with a consultation, right? So we will help them with a training first. It's just a day of a training where the consultant will go to the client place, open the PowerPoint slides. If let's say they want to get ISO 9001, the consultant / we also call them as a trainer, will train on the ISO requirement and tell them that, hey, today your company decided to comply to ISO 9 and to get the certificate. Let me teach you about the requirement first. So it's a day of a training. So they talks about the training. Okay. So after the introduction training, you will then move on to the second stage. It's where the consultant will help them to draft the document based on the standard. Okay, in a simple way. Okay, let's use ISO as an example. Let's take 14001. So 14001, it talks about environmental, right? So now if let's say company A decided to go for ISO 14001, our consultant will based on the standards, you know, help them to draft the documentation. Okay, so the reason why to draft the documentation is because the documentation, it has SOP. Okay, so it means that by having this set of documents, by having this set of the SOP, now that the client needs to follow the SOP to operate the business, you know, complying to the environmental standards. Okay, so after drafting the documentation, you know, imagine they have this set of file. It's all very nice SOP written inside. But when it comes to stage 2, it is not enough to justify to the auditor, say that, hey, my company complies to 14001, because the auditor is very smart. The auditor might be thinking, okay, you tulis begitu cantik, I mana tahu you ikut ke tak, kan? So this is just the stage 2. Stage 3 is where the implementation starts. What does implementation means? Implementation means implement means do the things, you know, it do something. So implementation, it's implementing the things that you write here. Okay, whatever you write here, you make sure you follow them. Okay, so this is what implementation means. Okay, so after, you know, they write all those very nice SOPs, say that, okay, I will do this way, I'll do that way. Not just by writing out, they need to follow, they need to carry out, they need to perform out, you know. So this is what implementation means. Okay, so what our consultant will need to do, they'll go there, you know, brief them how to do it. Okay, here I want to instill you a little bit of the knowledge. It's by justifying that they really do, they will have forms, they'll have records. Like for example, they said, okay, I'll do this way, right? You can't be just telling the auditor, you need to show them the proof. How do we prove it? How do we prove to the auditors that we are really complying? It's by, you know, filling out the forms. So you say that SOP, this and that, say that you need to do this thing. Okay, after you do, then you fill out the forms. So that act as a record, as a documented record, saying that, yeah, I really, you know, do it. Okay, so this is where that our consultant will needs to be there to brief them about the implementation. Okay, so our consultant will also during this stage, our consultant will also need to do 2 activities. One we call it as the internal audit, and one we call it as the management review. Okay, in case if in case the way of me explaining about internal audit and management review gets a little bit complicated and complex, please pause, press the pause button, replay, and to listen again. All right. Okay. So now I would like to explain to you what an internal audit means. Okay. So imagine here we have already trained them about the training, right? We have already briefed them about the requirements. We even draft out a very nice set of document for them. Okay, not just by having the document, we also teach them how to follow, how to use the document, how to fill up to prove that they really do according to the SOP. It's the implementation part. Okay. But what the auditor sometimes also wants to see is they want to see are you testing the effectiveness of your management system? Still remember what the management system is, huh? Okay. So after having the SOP, all this, after having the management system, after a proper plan, how you want to do the implementation. Okay, so because this might be the first time of you doing so. All right, so you want to test and see whether is the management system that you plan, that you drafted over here, is it effective or not? Before the auditor come and do the checking, our clients, they need to do their own checking first. Okay, so own checking, it means they need to do their own audit internally. That's why we call it as internal audit. Okay, so but for them to do the internal audit, sometimes they might not be so familiar. Like you have never heard about internal audit before. Okay, so does our client, they do not know what an internal audit is before meeting our consultant, before our consultant share with them that, hey, you need to do an internal audit. So before the internal audit, our consultant slash, they are also the trainer, our consultant will need to train them on internal audit training. It's also a day of a training, telling them that how they should actually perform the internal audit, how to do an audit internally. After training them, our consultant will be there to help them, to guide them physically how to do an internal audit. Okay, so like what I said just now, internal audit is you perform an audit internally. So after you audit internally, that means what it means is that inside our clients, right, there's actually many departments. So the people who is doing their own job, they can't be auditing, they can't be checking their job because it's not neutral, it's not independent. They need to have they need to choose someone in the company to act as an internal auditor to go and do audit. Okay, after the own people, the internal auditor is their own people lah, right? After auditing, they will have a report saying that, oh, I detect this, I detect that in our management system. Always remember when we mention about management system, don't confuse management system it's one kind of system or software. If let's say we have already entered this part and you still think that management system it's a kind of software, it's a kind of computer software, I suggest you to pause here, just go back to the earlier session and to understand again what is a management system means. All right, but let's go back here. So if let's say after the internal auditor detects something is wrong here, something is wrong there, they will come up with a set of the audit report, but it's their own audit report lah. They do it themselves, right? So this report, it needs to be reviewed and to be discussed in a meeting, okay? And during the meeting, the management needs to be there. So we call it as a management review. So our consultant will needs to be there as well, all right? Now, let's do a recall for our clients to make sure that they are really following a certain standard. Okay, this is what our job is. The clients, most of the time, they do not know how to do it on their own. So that's why they need the consultant help. So the consultant go in, okay, in order for them to follow the standard. So what will they start is that they'll start with a training first. Okay, after the training, it will then followed by helping them to draft the documents. Okay, after drafting the documents, having a document is not enough, they need to implement. Okay, after implementing, they need internal audit. But before internal audit, they do not know how to do it. They needs to have another trainings. Okay, after internal audit, they need to do management review. All right. And then you see now to the extent that document is ready, they also complies the SOP already. Not just comply, they also do the audit internally, check themselves already. Are they ready for the real audit? So this is not the real audit now. This is just audit internally only. So after they come to this part, okay, this is the time that they are quite ready. They are very prepared to face the real audit, to face the real auditor to come to their company and check, okay, you got follow or not? Do you follow? Okay, so this is where we call it external audit. So external audit will always be the last stage where it is the moment for the auditors to check whether the clients, they comply to that standards or not. But our work don't stop here. Okay, it's not that, okay, I finish and then the auditor come and then the consultant wrap up the job. No, haven't done. So in this stage, what our consultant will do is that our consultant will be prepared, maybe it might be during the audit day, our consultant will be there, to assist. Sometimes, most of the time, they can't assist, but they will be there to give a little bit of support to the consultants, or to be there as a backup in case there's any question asked from the auditor sides. The clients will check with our consultants, things like that. So this is the part where our consultant will still do the job by supporting them, okay, for the external audit. So why? It's because just want to make sure that they pass the audit. Okay, but most of the time when the auditor comes and do the audit for the client, it will always have comments. The consultant will always say that, okay, we detect something wrongs over here, we detect something wrongs over here. Something wrongs, we use another technical terms, we call it as NC. NC means non-conformance. Okay, so conformance, now look at the word here, confirm. What does confirm means? Confirm means follow. Okay, so still remember I said that the real auditor will come here and do the checking, right? So after the checking, usually they will have comments. Usually they will say that, this one I think you're not following. This one I think you're not following. Not follow, it means non-conformance. So with all these comment from the real auditor, they will give a report. It's called as non-conformance report. So this non-conformance report, inside the report, is actually stated the things that the client do not follow, because it is impossible for them to follow like the 100%. Okay, if let's say they follow 100%, there will still be comments coming from the consultant side. Okay, so when it comes to the real audit, after receiving the non-conformance report, what our consultant need to do is that our consultant needs to assist the client to reply to the NC. Okay, reply NC, that means like NC means the auditor said that, hey, you didn't follow that. So what we need to do in order to pass the audit is to help the clients do together, cooperate with the clients to go and follow the things they said we didn't follow. All right, let's take an example. Let's take food safety. All right, maybe during the audits, when the auditor goes to check them, if let's say they are compliant about the food safety, they might realize that when I'm thinking an example which is not so confusing to you. Okay, I managed to think one. So if let's say when it comes to food safety standards, right, one of the NC, it might be like this. It might be the auditor, it happens to see an expired ingredients in their production. Okay, like for example, they go there, they see this and it's expired. But just because of this, the auditor is not going to fail the client and say that, I'm so sorry, you cannot get the certificate. No, they will write down in the NCR, the non-conformance report, and say that, hey, I detected that it's an expiration over there, expired ingredients. So what is the consultant needs to, what the consultant needs to do here is that to help them to resolve this and say that, okay, I already throw it away, take a picture and show it to the auditor and say that, hey, see, the expired ingredients is not there anymore. So it's us helping them to close NC. That means it's to resolve all the NC queries, feedbacks that comes from the auditor. All right, so let us wrap up again. This is me explaining to you that how do we usually help them to comply to the standard? Just not because I've been telling you that we help people comply standard, but by how? It's by all these activities. Okay. Now, again, these are just those basic activities that we for sure will do for every standard. But sometimes different standards, it requires a little bit different activities. I like for example, food safety. Like for example, 9001, 14,001, when we start the project, right, we straight away start with a training. We don't need this. What is layout review? Layout review, that means we need to review the place and to give comment. Okay, this one, it's for food project, food safety project. Like, still remember what are they? They're 22,000, HACCP, GMP, halal, MSTI, you know. So this, okay, food safety certificate. So when it comes to food safety certificate, it will first start with a layout review. Okay. Now, so but what is layout review? Perhaps I do have some of the example to show you. Okay, so just now I've been telling you like what our consultant do. So to give you a little bit more of the ideas. So let's use pictures, you know, to help you to picturize. So still remember this one, when it comes to non-food certificate, we will not do this. We'll straight away do this. Okay, where is my training? I don't think I have trainings over here. Let me show you with another slide. Hang on. Okay, so this is the ones that comes with the training. Now, this is how it usually looks like. Okay, layout reviews. Remember, this one is only for food, right? If let's say it's not food, we'll straight away start with this. Okay, so layout review is basically us going to the production, the place where they produce the food products. Okay, so we need to design. Okay, first how the workers need to comes in and how they walks. Even how the worker walks, they can't simply walk here and there. It has a designated route. They have designated way for them to, you know, move around. Okay, and then we need to comment if let's say for the machine to put here and there, is that okay? So this is what we call it as the layout review. Okay, this is only for the food safety project. But other than that, let's see, training, you know, we do online trainings. Okay, if let's say not online, we will also do physical. That means we go to the client site to do on-site training. Okay, this one is more casual lah, but sometimes they do in a classroom type. Okay, now drafting of the documentation, this is how it looks like. You know, we see the clients and then we draft the document together with them, and this is usually how the document looks like. Okay, implementation. So of course this is not how the implementation it's only, you know, sitting in the meeting room. No lah, this one usually it might be the consultant brief them about the documents, like how to fill up, how to comply. Implementation, usually we only brief them about the implementation, but the implementation still needs to be done by the client. So, you know, we always tell when during the sales process, we always tell the clients that for you to obtain the certificate, it's not like how the way where you pay us the money, you know, we help you do, you get the cert. No, the work ratio, it will be 60-40 or 70-30. Usually 60-40. That means I will need to do my part, you will need to do your part also, especially the implementation part. The implementation is that I teach you how to do it, then you need to go and fill up the forms. Because our consultant can't be going to the client place and then help them to fill up all the forms, and then because they are the one who need to comply anyway, right? So, okay, then this is usually how the audit looks like. You know, this is the auditor go there, not just by checking how the factory looks like. They also, you know, flips the documents, flips their forms and see whether they really follows or not, right? So yeah, this is how we provide the consulting. So for us to recall, the consulting approach is just me telling you how we do this part. What about this? Don't worry, this is actually very easy because service, why is it different? Like here I thought there's training. Still remember this one inside consultation, there's actually training. Why there's another service called as training? Okay, the training here and the training here are different. Okay, so the trainings here, it's the audit requirements. The auditor said that for the clients to pass the audit, they need to attend training. That's why, we not just help them with the documents, we help them with the training as well. Okay, so let's not talk about this. Now, let us focus on this pula. This one, for us to provide training service, it's another service. This service, it could be people, coming to us and say that, hey, I need a training. I just need a training for you to train me on ISO 9001. So it will be our consultant. If let's say we have already, made the sales lah, then it will be our consultant go to the client place and then just teach the topic for a day, and then we get the money. It's just this way. This one, no, it's a full-fledged of service. This one is, they said they want training, we go there, we train. Usually it's a day. After training, we get the money. It's just as simple as this. So nothing much to explain about it. Okay, so now this is where it ends here for me to explain about the services that we provide.